Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Raising Confident Girls, and welcome to Pep Talk Friday. This is our second one. I'm so excited to bring you a pep talk every Friday because I know that I need pep talks in my life all the time. So if your daughter feels everything, the moods in the room, her friend's sadness, even your stress sometimes, this one's for you. Big feelings can be so incredible because big feeling girls are empathetic, they're caring, they're intuitive, but sometimes that deep sensitivity can make life feel really heavy. If you listen to my conversation earlier this week with Elizabeth Munt, the Kid Lit Mama, we talked about how stories and picture books can help girls make sense of big emotions, and that this episode in particular, and that conversation I had with her, reminded me that it's not just our girls who need reminders about emotional balance. Sometimes we as parents do too. So today's pep talk is all about how to support your big feeling girl without losing your own calm. So when your daughter feels everything like I did growing up, and I still do, it's not a flaw. She's not being too dramatic. She hasn't just learned how to keep her heart open and protected yet. And so the truth is she learns that from you. And so the goal isn't to teach her to feel less. It's to help her come back to calm when the world feels too loud. And Elizabeth talked about a book in the episode. If you haven't listened to it, please go back and listen to the episode right before this. That's called Aria, and it's all about this girl who is a big feelings girl, and she takes on a lot of things during the day, and her dad is kind of helping her work through how to unload some of that, and how she doesn't have to take on every single weight of the world. And so you can't control what she feels or tell her, like, I used to have people tell me all the time, well, just don't worry about it. Like, you don't even know them, or that doesn't mean that happened to you. And so these were often not close people in my life, but people who would observe me being really sensitive and not understand why. It would really make me feel like a shame about it, or like I shouldn't feel that way. And then I was like, no, I should feel for other people. But what you can do, even if you don't understand it, and even if you're not a big feeling person, doesn't mean that you're not a kind person, a good person, all that, but you may not feel things as deeply as she does. But you can teach her what emotional safety looks like. So one thing that you can do is you can anchor yourself first. I know whenever I, as a parent, have felt a big emotion that my child is feeling, it has made me feel kind of unglued a little bit. And so especially taking on other people's feelings, I have to be even more sensitive to, like, okay, anchoring myself. So what that means is just kind of centering yourself. And before you say a word, just taking a breath, taking a slow breath, softening your shoulders, picturing yourself as the calm anchor in the middle of her emotional storm. So sometimes when I know for myself, and even in the classroom, when I would see students who would be so worked up, you would be kind of panicky to figure out what was going on. But I found that it's so much more, and I'm not always perfect at this, but it's so much better when I can just kind of calm myself first and go into it just with a calm presence. And that really helps them feel more grounded and more just able to work through it and slow down a little bit to tell you what's going on. And so what I found is, like, when I would jump in without doing that, we both kind of get caught up in the moment, and we both get kind of swept away by the feelings. And so sometimes what you can do is you can even put, I know Mel Robbins talks about this, is putting your hands on your chest and just saying like, I'm safe, she's safe, we're safe, like whatever that calming phrase would be for yourself before you tackle what's going on or figure out what's going on with her or why she's having these big, strong emotions. And you can even do that with her. Like you can just put your hands on your chest and just say, like on yours and she on hers, and just say, let's take a breath together, let's just take a deep breath together and let it out. Like even if you just breathe in for 3 seconds and breathe out for 3 seconds, like even if you do something as simple as that, and you just say, let's just take a breath together before we talk. That moment of calm becomes contagious. And so it doesn't erase the emotion, but it gives her nervous system somewhere to land. And so your calm is the real lesson in that, in the beginning, of just like helping her get to the place where she can actually talk about it, especially if she's feeling really overwhelmed or if she's crying. And so what I've done before that doesn't work is start into advice mode or into fixing mode. And that's not really what they need in that moment. They just need your calm presence. So that's the first tool, is to really anchor yourself and to help her slow down and get anchored and grounded before you do anything else. And then the second is to validate. We talk about this all the time if you've listened to the podcast. Validate, don't dismiss. Even if it sounds ridiculous that she's taking on something, even if you're like, why would she be feeling big about this? When girls feel deeply, they don't need us to talk them out of it and tell them like why they shouldn't feel that way. They need us to sit beside it. So if she's upset about something small, resisting the urge to fix it with logic. So a lot of times we'll come at things with our adult lens and we're not seeing it from their perspective as a kid. And they're still developing in their emotions and their problem solving and how to work through things and regulate things in their bodies. And so instead of saying, you don't need to cry over that, that's not a big deal, you could say something like, I can see how that really hurt your feelings, or that must have felt embarrassing. Even if you're like, why would you be embarrassed about that? Like not saying that to them, because it can feel very, like I said, dismissive. It can feel like you don't understand them. So even if you don't agree with it, just validating, oh, that must have felt really hard, or that must have been sad, or that must have felt fill in the blank. Because when you name the feeling or the emotion without judgment, her body begins to relax, because then it doesn't feel like she's being scolded. It feels like she's being seen. And even if your intention is never to scold about this, it can come across that way. If you're like, really, that's not a big deal. It can make them feel like they shouldn't be, thinking about it in that way. And then it's bad that they are. And so you're not agreeing with if you see it as drama, you're not agreeing with it. You're just connecting with her heart that's underneath it. And you're trying to understand what she's going through. And that's what builds trust. Because if you go into the fixing mode, they're less likely, especially as they get older, to come to you with things because they think they're just going to get a lecture. So even if you don't agree, you're just validating how they're feeling and just holding that space so that she can freely start to talk about it, so you can understand what she's going through. And then the third tool is to teach what's mine, what's theirs. So big feelings girls often carry other people's emotions. So friends, teachers, sometimes even ours, and we don't even realize it. And so you can help her notice that by asking, is this feeling yours or is it someone else's? And so in her voice, it would be her asking herself, is this feeling mine or is it someone else's? And so if it's someone else's, teaching her to imagine gently setting it down or feeling for that person, but like almost like taking off a heavy backpack, like she doesn't have to carry that around with her. And so that's a way to visually help, especially if you have a younger girl. But like, it's also a good visual for an older girl to be like, when you are taking on other people's things. So maybe a friend of hers is having a really bad disagreement with another friend, or she's maybe struggling with something that's happening at her home. Her friend is struggling with something at her home and she's like really upset and worried about it. And it's like, teaching her that she can be there for her friend and she can feel for other people, but she doesn't also have to feel it like that person does. And so, like a heavy backpack, she doesn't have to carry everybody's feelings. You can make it a short reflection at bedtime, which is like, what feelings did you pick up today that aren't yours? Like, did you feel like you were carrying anyone else's feelings today? And so you can even ask her things like that. And I know it sounds like it's kind of making something simple into a complex thing, but it really is, if you have a big feelings girl, important to teach her how to not shut other people's feelings off, but that she can feel for others. And then she can also put it to the side and she can check back in with how she's feeling herself. So saying something like, what feelings did you pick up today that maybe aren't yours? And this wouldn't be like necessarily an everyday thing unless you feel like you would want to do that. But when she's in this and she's feeling, all the feelings of someone's cat who passed away, or someone who didn't do well on their test and she did, and she's feeling bad for that person, or maybe her teacher was in a grumpy mood and she's worried about her because she's normally a really happy person, or whatever the thing is. It's just teaching her awareness, that she can be aware of other people's feelings, but she can also set a boundary and not take that on herself. And she can have compassion and do all those things all at once. She can learn how to care deeply without caring everything. And so if your daughter feels everything, just remember this, is if this is even feeling overwhelming, it doesn't mean she's too sensitive. She is wonderfully aware of other people's feelings, which, like I said, is a superpower. And she doesn't need to toughen up. She needs your calm, your compassion, your example. And she's learning from you that big feelings don't make her weak. They make her human. Like whenever I would be upset about something that wasn't about me, like one time I rode the bus home, and it was the last day of school. I think I was in middle school, and we had this sweet bus driver, and he was an older man, and he was just a sweet grandpa. He never said anything like negative to anybody, and he was just very kind. And some of the boys on the bus took a plate, like a paper plate, and filled it with shaving cream. And while they were walking off the bus on the last day of school, they smashed it on his head and told him, like, have a good summer. And like they went off laughing. And I just watched him sit there with shaving cream all over his head. And I thought to myself, like, I felt so horrible for him. And it really bothered me for several days that those boys had done that. And my mom had to talk through it with me about how I can feel sad about that, and I can also have compassion for people. And I wanted to do something nice for him, and I can't remember exactly what we did, but my mom helped me find a way to do something kind for him, or a way also, though, to know that it was almost like I was feeling like I had done it, like I felt bad. And she was like, honey, you didn't do it, like you just witnessed it being done. And sometimes people do things that are unkind, and we can feel for other people, but we don't have to keep thinking about it for days and days. And also we can do something kind for that person if that's something that will, you think will help them. And so anyway, we processed through it how we could. But it makes you human, right? And I'm sure my mom was like, thank goodness that she like felt something in that moment, because some of the other kids on the bus just laughed about it, and it really, really bothered me. And so, um, my mom didn't really know some of these things, but I think she intuitively did. Like, she was calm when she talked to me about it, and she, gave me permission to feel what I was feeling at the time, and then helped me kind of release it. And so this weekend, if you just try one thing, or whenever you're listening to this, before you answer her emotion, if she has a strong emotion about something, take a breath and just ground yourself first, because that one small shift can change everything. So if you ever need anything or other ideas, please go back to this episode before this. Like I said, Elizabeth Munt, the Kidlit Mama, gave great resources with books to share. And you can also reach out to me at girlspositivityclub@gmail.com or on social media. And just remember that you've got this, and because you're helping your daughter turn sensitivity into strength. And that's really beautiful work. So if this pep talk spoke to you, share it with another mom or caregiver who's raising a big feelings girl. And if you haven't yet, go listen to the episode right before this with Elizabeth Munt. It's a beautiful reminder that stories can help girls make sense of their hearts. And as always, thank you so much for listening to Raising Confident Girls, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.